On today's program, I interview Rachael L. McIntosh. Rachael McIntosh is the author of the highly acclaimed Security Through Absurdity series of novels. Before working as a marketing communications specialist for one of the largest U.S. defense contractors, she was pursuing an art career in Boston, Massachusetts. She graduated summa cum laude from Massachusetts College of Art with a BFA in painting. Her work appears in the collections of MIT professor Noam Chomsky, jazz musician John Schofield, Massachusetts College of Art and Design's library, and multiple private collections. Her Security Through Absurdity series consists of 3 books: Little Yellow Stickies, Bubbles Will Pop, and The Big Show. She's currently working on Book 4, The Peanut Butter Pipeline. To learn more about Rachael McIntosh, visit RachelLMcIntosh.com. RachelLMcIntosh.com. Like the video, comment below, subscribe, and enjoy the show. Rachael McIntosh, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
In the news, Trump boosts defense spending by $54 billion. Rachael, you worked for a defense contractor. As someone experienced in that sector, do you believe this massive allocation of money will get spent wisely? But let's hear it from the president first here.
We have to win. We have to start winning wars again. I have to say, when I was young in high school and college, everybody used to say, we never lost a war. We never lost a war, you remember. And now we never win a war. We never win. And we don't fight to win. We don't fight to win. So we either got to win or don't fight it at all.
Your thoughts on this $54 billion military spending?
Oh, well, when you said, will it be spent wisely? That's hard to say, considering that I don't believe that most of our defense spending is spent wisely. That he's bumping it back up because it had already been pulled down. Working at a defense contractor, most of your life is fearing that you're going to get laid off because the government is cutting their budget. So the bumping it back up will at least give the people that are working at the defense contracting offices feel like, oh, okay, at least I have a job next week. But will it be spent wisely? I don't know. I'm guessing it's going to get spent to help Israel, because Israel, well, put it this way. Lockheed Martin has this thing called the F-35. It's the most expensive weapons project in the history of the world. A bunch of those planes are going to go over to Israel. It's going to, I'll tell you too, most of the price tag of that thing is the helmet that the pilots wear. It's going to cost $379 billion for 2,443 planes. And I think 50 or 100 will go to Israel. The rest of them will go to our Air Force. This thing is, like I said, it's the helmet. It's really sweet looking. If you look it up, look up the F-35 Lockheed Martin. The picture of it is pretty sweet looking. They just showed it. I think it was in Texas. But the main thing with that thing is the helmet. The helmet that goes on the pilot is all linked in. It's to every outside and inside the plane cameras. So the pilot, when he looks down at his legs, he doesn't see his legs. He literally sees the sky outside of him. He is now like almost an invisible entity flying this plane. And people that have grown up with, the Oculus stuff, they'll adapt to this, no problem. So that's what they're spending their money on. This is a pretty big project, and Lockheed Martin's in charge of it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the F-35 now. It looks like a stealth.
Oh, it's pretty sweet looking, yeah.
So, Rachael, you've worked for a major U.S. defense contractor. Do you want to name who that was?
Not really, but I'll tell you. It was L3. We were the company that made the full body scanners. And we made what we did, we made the parts, the little parts that would go into the different big contracts you'd hear like Lockheed Martin or Boeing would get, and L3 would be producing the little parts. So we were a subcontractor to the big ones. And when I was there, we were number 6 of the U.S. it was called the Big Six.
So these are the scanners that were put into the airports?
After the underwear bomber incident.
Right. And this is from Kurt Haskell, of course. Both you and I have spoken with him.
Yeah. I wanted to know his story right away because I was like, what happened here? We had those things in storage forever because Israel didn't want them. They don't work, or at least at that time, they did not work.
That's what I was going to ask you, is had they been made already, or were they in
Yes.
manufacturing already?
Yes. No, they were done. They were sitting in storage. We were trying to sell them all over the place. We were thinking in front of, like, especially in Israel, in front of courthouses when you go in. But they didn't want them because at that time, the ray that went through you would make you look like a white image on a black background. Metal would show up as black. So now you've got a metal gun showing up black on a black background. You can't see it. So Israel literally told us to get the F out. They didn't want it.
So you're telling me that these TSA screeners don't work?
At least that version when I worked there. Mm-hmm.
But since then, an incredible amount of money has been pumped up into the security section.
Yes. It's a different type of ray they use now, and I don't know what it is, but the guys I used to work with, they actually joked that they rather walk through a microwave oven than walk through the scanners. Now I just get pat down every time I go to an airport. I just pat me down.
So what else did you see when you were working for L3?
Well, it's all in my series of books, to tell you the truth, and it's all kind of fictionalized so that I don't get thrown in jail. But
well, nothing that we're saying here is true.
Yeah, it's all kind of entertainment, I guess we could say. But some of the things that I experienced there were people forging signatures to make things go through the way they wanted to go through. I also witnessed really hardcore the cohesion between our congressman and what was going on with our defense contracting company. He was basically a lobbyist. I, as the marketing person, would make DVD, like CDs and DVDs for him because this is a great story. You know that show 24? Remember with yeah, okay. When that first came rolling along, I placed some products on that show, just like some hardware and stuff. And my congressman, he wanted to show people, he's like, oh, let me show these people, which was great because then he didn't have to explain when we were trying to put these proposals in what the heck we actually did. He'd be like, oh yeah, you saw him on 24. What the heck? It was just a show. But right there, yeah, that sparked proposals getting passed through for us because people are like, oh, okay, so I know what they're doing, okay.
So evening television in many ways is a promotion for, again, a defense contractor.
Almost everything you see on TV is.
Oh, really? Give me another example, please.
Well, of course, the news, because part of my job, like I said, I was in marketing, right? So part of my job was to deal with these, how do you say it? I guess it's like a little paid spot on the news. And you'll see these a lot around Christmas time. They're usually like, Joan over here, she's talking to this woman about what do you do with your wine at Christmas? And they'll have they'll highlight some sort of wine holder or some sort of cork that you put in your wine. You've seen these things and you know they're just like filler stuff. But they do that too with the defense industry. And for instance, you know remember those Patriot missiles when they were flying through the doorways right into a place and exploding? Remember that? Those missiles, those Patriot missiles, almost none of them actually worked. But we got that spot on TV and people bought it. There was it looked like a rudimentary house, probably made out of cinder block or something. And they were doing testing of the Patriot missile. And they'd show the missile literally going through a front door of a place. And that footage got used over and over and over and over again. But if you look up the statistics of how many of the Patriot missiles actually hit with their targets, It was very, very, very few. So if you could get an image, that was sticky, meaning like that's going to sell something. That's going to get into a congressman's hands. That's going to push your proposal through and you can get something sold.
Okay, so now we know of two things that kind of didn't work that got pushed on the American public. Do you have a third?
Yes. The other thing that I was pushing all around, and even at the time, I was like, this is incredible, because I wasn't skeptical of anything. I was, yay, USA. We got to take down the enemy. I was really pro what I was doing. I really thought what I was doing was helpful. The bunkers that Osama bin Laden was supposed to be, underground bunkers that he had, these things were coming out of the Pentagon, and I was literally passing them to the press with our proposals. And these things had been so crafted, you wouldn't even believe the artists that had to touch and deal with them. That's when I was like, this is crazy. But I was in the state of mind that I actually believed it. But I saw that there were artists literally just like making it up on the fly to make something that we needed to sell work.
Sell to the American public?
Well, we were selling the concept that we needed more military for sure, right? But we were also selling to our congressmen parts that they would need in this war against terror.
This is incredibly unethical, don't you think?
Well, yeah, that's why I quit. That's why I quit. The other thing that was really horrible, at least for me, because I was pregnant. Had gotten pregnant, and I had pregnant with twins, and I became aware that my boss had a problem with pedophilia, and I literally couldn't do it anymore. I had to leave. I was like, this is too dark.
Okay, so how did you end up working for a defense contractor in the first place? I mean, you have a moral compass, right?
Right. As do most people when they first roll in. This is what happened. I actually went to art school. I went to Massachusetts College of Art. I have an art degree, fine art degree in painting. And when I got out, I ended up finding out I had MS. And that made me just basically marry the first person that I could find so that I could get health insurance. And I'll be really honest about that. I was like, I need health insurance. And this person lived in Connecticut. We got married. I moved to Connecticut, and he's like, well, now you got to get a real job. So I took a job with a placement agency, a temp agency, and the temp agency put me in there. And because I knew how to use email, I instantly became in charge of marketing communications at this one little small place that instantly got bought up by the big place. And as the big place kept buying up little places, because I was the youngest person there, I was probably getting paid the least amount, but it was the most amount of money I had ever made. I kept getting promoted, and more of these divisions, I kept getting in charge of what was going out of their house. So, and that's how it happened. And as you're getting promoted, you're making more and more money, and you're believing what you're doing is right, because why else would they be paying you so much money if it wasn't important, right? So you believe it, and you're starting to drive around in Mercedes, and you've got cool clothes, and you've got cool stuff, shoes that you never thought you'd be able to afford ever. So it's almost like you buy into it because it's convenient. But then when it started to get to the point where I started putting the pieces together, and then the thing was my boss, I had to leave. And during that time when I left, I ended up investing in real estate, which was right when the bubble popped. So after all that happened, I had all this money, the most money I had ever made in my life. And it was all gone. It was all gone with the housing bubble. Bankruptcy and all that stuff set in. And then I wanted to fix all this that I had been involved with, because I thought it was just so unfair all the way around. I got involved with politics. I started to really campaigning hard for Ron Paul, because he was the only one saying, just get the troops out of there, just come home. After seeing how much was going on with the defense contractors, I knew for a fact that the stuff we were sending out for our troops, for instance, there was stuff made in China that we were taking taking the labels off, putting Made USA on, and reselling to the government. Stuff like that was going on. So I wanted to fix all that. So I started marching around for Ron Paul, and between the 2007-8 campaign and the 2012 campaign, finally I became a delegate. I ended up going to the Republican National Convention in 2012, and I should have known it, Russell. I should have known it. It's all a made-for-TV event. It was, and it blew me away because I couldn't believe that our governance is a made-for-TV fake thing. And that's what made me come home, basically have a breakdown.
What about the convention seemed fake to you?
Well, first off, I was on a hijacked bus. We were Rhode Island. I'm in Rhode Island, and Rhode Island had voted. Now, this kind of gets technical inside the inner workings of the Republican Party, but I'm guessing it's fairly similar to how the Democratic Party works, because basically you just saw everything happen almost exactly the same to the Bernie Sanders people. Anyhow, what happened to us, Rhode Island, we had supported something called the Minority Report. It's not even important what the heck the Minority Report is, but Rhode Island supported it. During the night, the first night before the convention, this hurricane was supposed to come through. Put it this way, the hurricane never came through. But on the Weather Channel, they were going, oh, this hurricane, this huge hurricane, we got to call off the convention. So they called off the convention. There was no hurricane. Meanwhile, people all over the country were thinking we were having a hurricane. And they took that opportunity to meet with each of the states and the Republican parties of each of the states and have them agree to change the rules of the whole entire party. And so they did, and they changed the rules so that Ron Paul could not be elected from the floor of the convention. Whereas before that day, in this quote unquote hurricane, Ron Paul could have been elected from the floor. He had enough states backing him. But they changed it and they added like 3 more. You need 3 more states and he can't get elected now. So not that he was actually going to win, but the point that they changed it in the middle of it, okay, fine. So now they decided to, because the convention's back on, they had this meeting to talk about this rules change because people were very upset. You can't just change the rules of the convention right in the middle of the convention. And Rhode Island and Virginia was the state that authored this thing, the Minority Report. We were sharing the same hotel very far away from the actual convention center. And they had us on a bus, and the bus never showed up. And then when it finally did show up, we had to get off the bus, and they had an armed guard with us to protect the delegates. And it was very, very dramatic. And we got on the bus. The bus ended up circling around Tampa, never really getting there. We finally got to the convention, but we got there too late for this meeting about the rules change. The rules change was ratified. And then they had this whole thing on TV, like they had it live, out to the population that, and it was literally, the guy was reading from a teleprompter that everybody agreed to this rules change and the ayes have it. And it was all fake. It was all fake. So that's how that happened. And then when I got home, I can still keep talking. When I was there, because of that whole fake thing, there was this huge fight that broke out right in front of the press boxes, because it's in this arena type of place and, these sporting arenas. They have press boxes for where the stations are going to be. So the different stations are there, CNN, Fox, they're all there. And right in front of the press boxes, this big fight breaks out. Press, of course, doesn't even mention this going on. And that's when I saw the security people just coming through and smashing people's cameras and stuff like that. I was like, you know what? The real story is never going to get out. So that's when I came home and I started writing my books, and I wrote them all as fiction. so that people would gobble it up, more like eating candies or chips or something, because it's kind of fun and it's kind of you get all involved with the characters, and then you realize there might be another message going on in this story too. There's parts of the book that's going to make you laugh, and there's parts of the book you're just going to like, is that true? I got the books in the Rhode Island and the Connecticut public high schools now. Even though I wrote them for Gen X, the high school kids seem really interested in it. So it's in the high school systems here.
So tell me about 9/11 and what you saw and what you heard being talked about.
All right. Well, before 9/11 happened, there was a really big meeting. And I'm bringing this up because for some of your listeners, they might put two and two together, and it's still kind of hazy for me. But there was a big meeting, and they sent everybody who was up in the upper ranks to Oklahoma City for the Oklahoma City bombing memorial. And they had them literally just hanging out, looking at this thing, talking to the generals, talking about the USA Patriot Act. Then, life goes on. Everybody comes home. And then we had now it's summertime. That's when they had this memorial, I guess. And we had an intern with us. This intern was from Egypt. And he was the first son of the first wife of this. He was in charge. The man that he was the son of was in charge of all the Navy, and he was an admiral in Egypt. And he was very spoiled, and he took over the largest office in this whole place. And he would sit at his computer and just rootle around on this thing all day long. He didn't do anything. But one day he came in my office and he's like, I have to go to New Jersey. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you, but it's not my department. I can't really do anything for you. And he had this thing where, like, if you were a woman, you were going to do what he said. He was this young kid, right? And I was like, well, look, and I brought him out to the front desk to deal with the front desk receptionist. She always dealt with travel and stuff. And I said, well, he needs to get to New Jersey, apparently. And so he ended up talking to everybody about getting to New Jersey. And the IT guy where I worked, he ended up letting him use his credit card to rent a car to go to New Jersey. When he came back, he was freaking out. He came into my office and he was literally in tears. He needed to get back to Egypt right away. And I said, look, I brought him back out to the front desk, to the receptionist. I said, I have nothing to do with travel. Deal with her. So he did that for 2 days straight. And then he just kind of disappeared. Nobody knew where he went. The receptionist sent the custodian out to the condo that he was staying in. And the custodian came back. He's like, I don't see him anywhere. That was Monday. Tuesday, September 11th happens. That's how quickly this happened. He needed to get out of there. He was back from New Jersey. I think it was the Wednesday before September 11th. And he literally just left. And it was only afterwards, that day, that on September 11th, that everybody started realizing that, why did Ahmed have to get out of here? What was his problem? What was the big deal? And the owner of, the CEO of the division that we were at, he made an announcement because people wanted to call the FBI on 9/11, because they had it on TV, the scrolling thing on TV. Call FBI. Here's the number if you've got any tips. So everybody wanted to call the FBI. And the owner of this defense contractor came out and he said, no, don't do that. You'll be wasting time for people to have real information. Don't do that. He said, if you do that, you're going to get, reprimanded. So me and that IT guy, we kind of teamed up and we said, you know what, we're going to call the FBI. So we called the FBI out. We were out in the car in the parking lot, and we called, both of us. And we found out a bunch of people actually called too. And it was only a year, probably later, maybe a year later, that we saw that the kid's father signed a new contract with our company. Here's the other thing too. When 9/11 happened, we heard from every other country that was our customer. We had customers all over the world. We heard from everyone except for Egypt, which was one of our biggest customers. And very first time we heard from them was when we got the letter back from that kid's dad. He'd been recommended, he'd been promoted up to, he was now in charge of the entire Egyptian Navy, and he was taking a contract with us. And we never heard from that kid again.
Rachel, let's talk about Project Lisa. Just give us the overview of what that was.
Okay, Project Lisa was something I witnessed. It was on the anniversary of September 11th. And what they did is they had called down all of the defense contractors, marketing communications people, of which I was one. And of my company, they called my company down, and there were 63 divisions at that time of the company I was at. And we were meeting with this general right across the street from the Pentagon at the Sheraton. And he had the big screen up, and he was talking about the different countries that we would have to brace ourselves for and get ready for. And it just so happens that it happens to be all of these wars that we're watching right now happen in front of our face. But at the time, I was all freaked out. I was like, my God, what the heck do we need in Libya? You know, like writing this stuff down, taking copious notes. And then as soon as the guy finishes, all the fire alarms go off. The whole place is, and everybody's really startled. So we had to evacuate, went out the front door, and we realized all of the hotels on the street are being evacuated. And now we're walking out, and all the fire alarms are going off, and the only thing we could do is just sit and stare at the Pentagon. And of course, it's the anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of September 11th. And everybody's pretty stunned, and we're wondering, oh my God, is it another terrorist attack? What's going on? And just at that moment, a general comes up. I believe it was a 2-star. The guy inside was a 4-star. This guy's 2-star, and he knows one of the salespeople. I wasn't a salesperson. I was just the marketing person, meaning I was doing communications out of the house. But the sales guy knew this general, and the general says to him, oh, why don't you come with us? We'll get a little lunch, and just get in this van. So this white van pulls up. We jump in, and we're in the back of this van. There's no windows, and there's other people from other defense contractors. So this van has been going up and down the street collecting people. We ended up driving around. It felt like we were driving in circles. And we ended up pulling up to this brick, like corporate park kind of building. We go inside, and the elevator was broken. So we had to walk up. I think it was to the 3rd or 4th floor. And it was like kind of one of those rental office kind of places. And they had a conference room set up and sandwiches, the wraps and everything. So we were drinking our Diet Pepsis and having wraps. And they set up this presentation, had the PowerPoint presentation. They hooked up the camera to the computer that they had. And they were showing all these icons on the screen. And the icons were of the different things that you would need to do during a major catastrophe, meaning like you'd have to do acquisitions, you'd have to do different types of accounting, you'd have to deal with communications out of the house, you'd have to deal with the press. It showed you how to get to different press things. Now, mind you, this is right when the Department of Homeland Security was just becoming a thing. It was like people were like, oh, we sort of have to get all these different agencies together on one roof. And so this was some sort of program, and it was called Project Lisa. And I don't know where they got that name. Coincidentally, the woman that had showed us our seats, her name was Lisa, so who the heck knows. But anyhow, we're looking at this screen with all these different icons on it. And, there's different icons for tanks and fire trucks and like an axe, different things, different that symbolize us, money signs that would symbolize different things you have to click on to get into during an emergency. And one of the things I noticed didn't make sense to me. So me being, once again, the youngest person there and kind of freaked out by this whole thing, I wanted to look like I was doing something productive. I raised my hand and I said, well, what is that one? And they said, which one? Why don't you stand up and come up and point to it? So I stood up and I walked in front of all these people and I pointed to it and I was laughing. I said, it looks like a UFO. And he goes, it is a UFO. I was like, ah. So like now everybody's looking at me like I don't belong there. And so, yeah. So I'm smiling and I go sit down. And the general that had brought us in the van, he's there. And this other general's there too. And he starts explaining that the U.S. government has to have plans in place for the most unlikely events. Anything could happen. So we have to have these plans in place. And I was like, oh, and meanwhile, I'm still kind of like dumbstruck about the fact that it's the 1 year anniversary of September 11th. We just had this huge fire drill. I'm looking at the Pentagon, and now I'm in this place with generals, and it's dark, and I'm looking at this thing with a UFO icon, and he's talking to the other general about actual aliens. And it was the most surreal thing. What the heck? So that was one of the most amazing things I think I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, with that same emotion, what else do you feel that was as surreal as that?
When I finally put the pieces together about pedophilia going on in where I worked.
Do you think that's a common thing in the government and defense contracts, or is it just an isolated incident that could happen anywhere?
I don't know. The whole thing with Pizzagate, though, makes me realize this may be like way bigger, like a much bigger common thing than I ever imagined. I don't know.
The world sucks. It's nothing like we thought it was.
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Yeah, when did you realize that?
Well, like I said, when I got home from that convention, I mean, I'd already lost all my money. I'd lost everything. I was pregnant with twins. Now I'm bankrupt, pregnant, having had twins, and I want to fix things. And I figured, oh, let me deal with it through politics, because that's the way, you learn in your civics class as a kid. Like, this is how you fix it. And I'm going to be that person that fixes it. Not that I wanted to be president or anything, but I'm going to be involved in the process. And it was clear that money powers have their own agenda, and that we are kind of like just window dressing to make it look like a show so that everybody feels like I don't know how to describe it, but I was so heartbroken. That's why I came home and wrote all these books. I wrote the books all in one lump sum. It's 3 books, and I wrote them all at once, and I gave them to the original publisher, and they said, wow, you gave us a lot of work here. Let's break it into 3 books. And I said, sure. So we broke it into 3 books. We had the first book called Little Yellow Stickies. That's the one that focuses primarily on the defense contractor. And we had it that summer ready to roll in 2014, I think it was. And it was doing very well. It was in the top 10,000 on Amazon, on all the books on Amazon. It was selling in the top 10,000, which is huge. There's millions and millions of books on Amazon. September rolls around and I sold not one book. And I said, you've got to be kidding me, because we'd been doing all sorts of like publicity for September that, we'd sell. I called up the publisher. I said, we didn't sell even an ebook. And they said, no. And then I said, well, what's up with Amazon? So I contacted Amazon. Amazon said, well, it's your publisher's fault. And the publisher's like, no, it's your Amazon's fault. Turns out the 2 of them weren't talking for September. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I said, you know what? I'm going to take the chapters that are just about September 11th, and I'm going to publish them myself. And so I did. And I put them on sale for 99 cents on Amazon as like a little magazine thing. Within 24 hours, I sold over 2,000 copies. And I said, you know what, publisher? You suck. I broke my contract with them, and I became my own publisher. So now all my books are on Entropy Press, which is me. And I put the books back together as they were originally written as one book. And that book's called Trace in Unum. Latin makes it legit, because I just wanted people to get a kick out of the fact that we have all these different laws and we got lawyers marching around. It doesn't really matter. What matters is how you're getting along in the world with the people around you. And I really want people to understand that the world is crummy when you finally find out that Santa isn't real, and that the Easter Bunny isn't real, and that these different illusions that they sold to you aren't really what they promised, that you just got to be good people. And we've come so far, I think, as a culture in the United States, that that's what's making it difficult for us.
Is it so big, though, that it can't be taken down? I mean, is that what you're kind of saying?
No, it can definitely be taken down if you'd ignore it. Just ignore it. Honestly, that's the way I feel. Like, just go on and be good people, and it will take down itself. It is so heavy. It's so, when I say heavy, the money that they've got themselves spinned up, what they're spending, what they're doing, things that they've got themselves occupied with, it's going to collapse by itself. So I think the main thing is to know your neighbors, know your family, know what makes you feel right in the world, and follow why you were here on the planet to begin with in the first place. That's what I think.
Is Trump capable of doing anything? Are you suggesting that that's a part of the show, too? And now we have a reality star, occupying the White House.
Yeah, I don't think that's any mistake, to tell you the truth. Well, I'll tell you what I did, and some people will be very upset. Maybe they won't. I voted. I went and I voted. I voted for all the local issues, all the local questions, the local people. But when it came to president, I just wrote in, I do not consent, because I honestly felt like the election got so disrespected by both Trump and Clinton. And then we had the third parties, which, God bless them, they were in there trying to get organized. They couldn't, because it was the money that was behind both Clinton and Trump, I think, quite frankly, was darn near close the same, because there's a level of finance that's it's linked in with a type of government that runs parallel to the government we see on TV, where everything's supposed to be by the Constitution, all these laws, and there's this other thing going on at the same time, a parallel type of government that's really run by finance. And that finance, for instance, the CIA is one of the largest banks in the world now, and it's operating as such. And that means contracts are going to move, money's going to move. Basically, commerce has taken over the planet. And we as Americans, yeah, we can vote, we can do whatever we want, but this other power is now, it's grown exponentially because it's in a black budget. It's not in any sort of accounting situation where people could go, oh, we're going to cut that spending. It's totally off the rails. It's on a different, it's parallel. It's doing, but it doesn't pay taxes, obviously. So they're be able to invest and do all these things. And we cannot compete. Even if we could pull ourselves together to get our budgets together, and we can't compete with that.
So how to survive in this?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. The best thing you could probably do is, I mean, if people are into God, get right with God, get right with your family, get right with your community, and know what your actual, because the people that are marching around right now, we've got police, we've got military, get right with those people. You're not anti them. You've got to be right with them. You can be anti the policies that are pushing them to do what they do, but they will be the ones that have a job, that are getting paid. So they'll be like my character Jocelyn in my books. She's making money. She's believing she's doing the right thing. These people will be the last people to break because they're making money. Their life is good. What's wrong? So you want to know your Constitution. You want to know what your rights are, so that when you talk to these people, be like, no, it's right here. And I'm not doing anything wrong. But my main thing is, the minute they start trying to forcibly do things like vaccinate my kids or take away people's guns, that's when you know it's getting close.
Well, as it is, for many schools, you can't enroll your kid unless they've been vaccinated.
Yeah, I know. I did that since my kids were born, and this is the first year they've gone to school, and I have to say, and they're 6th grade now. I have to say, I'm questioning. I might even take them out for next year. I think it's good that they're having this experience to see what everybody's doing, all their peers are doing, and how they have to get up in the morning, move around, go to lockers, and all this other stuff, and Common Core math. And that's one of the reasons why I put them in the school, because Common Core is on the SATs now, and I can't teach that. I have no idea. So, but I'm looking at what they're actually doing, and I think my homeschooling, I already know my homeschooling was better.
So, Rachel, you've said some juicy things. What's another parting shot for the audience?
Well, here's the other thing I'm coming to the conclusion about as well, and this is just me as a person. I'm not any sort of expert about this at all, but I do think that what we believe to be money is not going to be there for us. So all that, like the same thing with running around trying to get your kid into college so that they can have a good job and a good life and all this, and saving money for your retirement. I think for the normal average human here in the United States, I think that's a completely, we're slipping into fallacy land as to what that is all about. So right now I'm basically off the grid as far as money. Although I do have, not that I'm going to say this on air, in case the IRS is listening, everything fell off a boat last month and it's completely lost and it's gone. But I think that people should probably stock up on precious metals. I think people maybe should get some Bitcoin. What the heck? Why not throw it in the mix? I think that people should maybe get themselves into a situation where they're not paying like a lease on a car or a loan on a car. I think those sort of things will, try to get yourself completely out of debt, because the minute you're out of debt, you're richer literally than, I want to say, 85% of people in America, because everybody's in debt. They're living on it. It's a debt-based society right now, and that's what makes people feel wealthy, but they're not. They're in debt. And when you're in debt, you're somebody else's bitch, So I think that's where I've come to.
Rachael McIntosh, where can the audience learn more about you and get in touch with you? Perhaps you're on social media.
Yay! Okay, good. My website, well, there's a few different ways to get in touch with me. I'm on Facebook. I've got I've got a fan page and I've got like a personal page. You can jump into either one. Rachael L. Make sure you got that L in there. 2 L's. RACHAEL. And then another L. McIntosh. MCINTOSH. And then I have my website, which is rachellmcintosh.com. And that's all about my books. And then right now I'm doing a thing called Shadow Citizen, where I'm interviewing people. Like tomorrow I'm interviewing Catherine Austin Fitts. And I've talked to a bunch of really interesting people. I'm going to have Professor Griff on from Public Enemy. And we're going to talk about what it's like being in this day and age as a person who's trying to deal with the economy, with the social stuff that's going on around us. I honestly picked the name of that show because I felt like with what's going on with the economy, a lot of people have slipped off and are now existing as just a shadow of what they thought they were going to be. They can't get to where they thought their life was going to be. And how can they deal with it? So I wanted these people to hear from real people about what's going on around us so they can make up their own minds about what they want to do and how they want to proceed. Because we're only here once, or maybe not, but at least in this experience right here, we want to have a good life. And what do we have to do that?
That really grinds my gears. You got Catherine Austin Fitts on the program. I've been trying to get her on for 6 years now.
Oh my gosh, Russell. I don't know. I got on Twitter.
I've talked to her on the phone. I've emailed her a few times. It never happens.
Well, maybe because I'm a girl. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
But, No, I think she did read my books, and I think she's fascinated because I am a big fan of Zero Hedge. It's a website called Zero Hedge, and I'm always interested in the financial stuff that's going on. And I think she sees me interacting with Zero Hedge on Twitter, and I think that's why she said she'd show up.
All right, you backpedaled well enough. No, but it's good for you. How do you enjoy doing it?
I love it. I love it. First off, I never thought I'd be a writer, and it just came tumbling out of me. And now I've got all these books. I'm getting ready to publish it'll be my 5th book actually, this year. And then the show Shadow Citizen, that just happened by mistake because people were interviewing me about the books. And one of the hosts that interviewed me, he had me on a second time. And apparently I had like the most traffic to their whatever this place was that was interviewing me. They said, you just blew it off the charts. They said, you should host a show. I was like, well, I don't know how to do radio stuff. I don't really know that. And so the guy that interviewed me, he said, I'll do the radio stuff. I was like, oh, okay. So that's Rob Osell. He's the co-host of this thing. He handles all the production stuff. And then my job is to get the other guests on and to do the website and do the social media stuff. And I'm having a grand time. I think it's wonderful. And I'm getting to talk to people that I really, really admire because they're really doing stuff. Like we're having, what's his name? Otel. The guy, the whistleblower guy. He's going to be out of control. He did all the work about the Clinton Foundation. And he says that through his work, he's discovered that the Clinton Foundation is the largest sanctioned fraud through a nonprofit that the United States has ever witnessed on the planet. So I'm interested to talk to him.
What's the name of the show again?
It's called Shadow Citizen .online, not .com, .online. And it gets pushed live through that website, www.shadowcitizen.online, every Wednesday at 1:00 Eastern. And then I archive it on YouTube and Vimeo. And then it's also on SoundCloud, and it's being turned into a podcast on iTunes. So all of the archives are at the website. And then soon, like I said, everything will be on iTunes too. So no matter how you want to access it, it will be there for you. And I don't make any money off of it. And Rob and I don't make any money. We think it's important, and we think it's time.
What's the name of the show again?
Shadow Citizen.
Say it again.
Shadow Citizen.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? It's Verizon. No, it's shadowcitizen.online.
Very good. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for being a guest on the program today. Great show.
Hey, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I was blown away when you said I could come on your show. Thank you, Russell.